Yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Coffee Talk Supplemental. Happy 4th of July for all of you guys in America. Independence Day from the King. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy your day out there. Be safe with the fireworks and all that good stuff. Yada, yada. If you're on a boat, you know, boat safety. You don't drink and drive. All that stuff. But still, have a good time. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to be celebrating the heck out of it. Despite the... how do I put this, sometimes negative connotations in the recent history. Yeah, I'm going to be out there celebrating for sure. We're going to have a barbecue, standard hamburgers, hot dogs, jalapeno poppers from the garden, a couple beers, all that good stuff. Then we're going to go down and watch the fireworks. We can actually walk to the place that it is in our town, so it's going to be awesome. So have a great one. I have noted this on Coffee Talk a couple times. I don't know if I've said it on the channel here. So for those of you who don't watch the Coffee Talk, I am going on vacation. I have some videos built up, but not enough for the whole vacation. So I won't be back until probably July 28th, early August, something like that. That being said, then there are going to be a week or two, probably two-ish, maybe a little bit more, where I don't have any videos. We'll see. I mean, if I get to it, I might get to it. If not, right now it's looking like not. Also in that vein, so I have been considering often, I would say, in the last year, really dialing back the content creation on World of Tanks. Ever since I haven't been a CC, the compensation on that's been less. Now you guys have supported the channel, so there's still Patreon guys out there. I still get the odd donation, all that good stuff, and that's all fantastic. So that's kind of another reason I'm bringing this up. If you have that stuff going on Patreon and I'm not providing the stuff, remember that it's there, and if you feel like you need to cancel that, please do so. When I get back and I make my decision on whether I'm going forward or what I'm going to do, I probably will stick around, but we're going to talk about it in just a second, why and all that good stuff. If I decide that, no kidding, we're done with this, then I will cancel all of those for people who may have forgotten, but I'm going to let it go for a month. And obviously, if you need to stop the Patreon thing or whatever it is you're doing to support the channel, completely understand. I don't want you chucking money at someone who isn't doing shit. All right? I think I will be coming back. I will still do World of Tanks, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I will do it as much, and I don't know if I'll do as many videos. I know I've threatened this in the past and it really hasn't happened. In fact, one time I threatened it and I started doing more videos, so I don't know. You go to vacation, you come back, recharge, we'll see how it goes. Normally, I've done this in the last, 6, 10 years, however long it's been. I've been doing this, I'd have the videos built up and pretty seamless coming back, but I just didn't get to it this time. Been busy, all that good stuff. Plus, I've been thinking about it. So that's going back to what I just mentioned about the thinking about it part a lot over the last year. Not being a CC incentive-wise is down because I don't get the content, all that good stuff. Again, thank you to you guys who have supported it, because obviously that part is still there. I've been very open about that. It's been nice to get that bit of money in, because then I can buy a new rig or new equipment, new cameras, all the things that I've done to keep the channel going. The same BS that every content creator says, which honestly is largely true. On the one hand, it's it's kind of self-serving to look at you guys and go, without you, I couldn't do this. Without you, I couldn't have this fantastic rig where I have a great gaming experience, because it's all for you. Let's be honest. You know what I'm saying, all right? So, okay, so World of Tanks itself. Why? Why is this a departure video? It's the old, it's not an airport, you don't have to announce your departure. Well, it's not a departure necessarily it's a round-trip ticket probably, all right? But I am flying away for a little bit here, both figuratively and literally, as I'm going out to the cabin. And why am I doing that? Let's have a little coffee together here. Very nice, very nice. It is quiet in the house, early July 4th in the US. You'll get this as soon as I get done and edit it. Obviously the video didn't show up at 7 this morning like it usually does. It'll be a little late because here I am doing it at 7:21. So why? What is going on with World of Tanks? Why is this a departure round trip possible ticket idea? Why this whole babblethon here? The game is in a pretty sorry state in some aspects. It's in a really great state in some aspects, and a pretty sorry state in other aspects. In terms of graphics, doodads, numbers of tanks, I've always said content is king. We'll talk about that though, because it's not just a blanket, everything's great. Numbers of tanks, all that kind of thing. The game's in a pretty good state. In terms of matchmaker, it's in a pretty good state. Again, we'll cover a little bit of that as we go. Matchmaker has maybe not ever been as good as it is, with some limitations, which are mainly player driven, but also it's incentive driven by wargaming, and then of course players make their decisions on that. So what is not working? And if I can think of other things that I like quite a bit, I mean, there has been some reorgs, the equipment reorg, the crew reorg. Those things have all been generally pretty good. All right, what is not working? Unfortunately, the way the game is built with a tier system and with the mechanics it has, it breaks down in the higher tiers, and it also breaks down when the tanks get to the top end of the capabilities of the game in terms of the way the game is mech'd, in terms of the rules of the game. So I'm talking largely about things like the view system, things like the dispersion system. You get a certain accuracy and that system sort of breaks down. But if you have a very inaccurate gun, then you're really in the middle of that chaos, of that randomness. But as the guns get more accurate and accurate, that chaos largely goes away, and it's a completely different experience and game mechanics situation. And the problem is that at tier 10, this is extremely wide. Whereas at the mid to lower tiers, everything's kind of inaccurate, roughly the same. But when you get to the top tiers, I think the game really breaks down in terms of how it was, I think, envisioned and how it was played for a very long time. Which is to say, at tier 10, you can get deleted pretty easily. And it's not a very fun gaming experience. And this is probably my biggest comment and problem with the whole situation right now, is oftentimes I sit down and it is not a fun gaming situation. Largely that's a personal problem. I've played a lot of games. I have over 100,000. I've done this for a long time. I've made a lot of content. Played at a pretty good level, not playing as good a level now as I get a little bit older. So skill issue, me, got it, noted. However, that being said, I've been thinking about this for a while, because it doesn't necessarily matter why the things are happening. It's just that when they are happening and the perception, that's not a good gaming situation. Now, for those aspects that are under my control, I can't whine to wargaming about not being very good at tier 10. But I can discuss how the gaming experience is not very fun based on things they are doing. So monetization and the continual power creep of better and better tanks and not touching other tanks. We have, I believe, if it's not even, it's more premium tanks and reward tanks than we have tech tree tanks. Theoretically, the tech tree is what the game is built around, but not really. And anytime you go on to the stat sites and look at the best tanks, there are no tech tree tanks at the top. That's terrible. You should at least be able to have a mix up near the top. There should be some, and every time a tech tree tank starts to get near the top, it's all of a sudden a problem. And they'll toot their horn, beat their drums, talk about balance, crap all over the one tech tree tank, the one crab that's a tech tree tank that just about got to the top of the bucket, and they'll yank it back down. Meanwhile, we have all kinds of premium and reward tanks that are problems and are rarely, if ever, touched. Only in the most extreme cases, and only after a very long time, well past the time wargaming should have done something to it. Things like the Type 59 back in the day that went for a long time as a problem. Things like the Chieftain, things like the 279 early, which interestingly, those are still very good tanks, despite the nerf they supposedly got. There is no tech tree tank that leapfrogged over the Chieftain or the 279 early, as an example. Now, the Type 59 was a little more successful. It has dropped considerably, but Tier 8 is something of its own little monster, because there are so many overpowered and some broken, and some both broken and overpowered tanks. I'm looking at UBZ-176 at Tier 8. So the power creep is a big one. My skill is a problem. Got it. Not whining about that. That's just the way it is. overpowered tanks that Wargaming refuses to deal with or manage or balance in any meaningful way. The constant crapping on the tech tree. And just the fact that at any tier, most tiers and types, break it down how you want, it will be premiums with a very few exceptions in the top 10. And if they aren't completely in the top 10, it's only because there aren't that many of them at that tier. That being said, there's another interesting side note on that. Premium tanks that people paid money for or competed for that are garbage, that are all at the bottom, perennially at the bottom, not being buffed or touched. It's very interesting. Can every tank be exactly the same? No. Is there a problem when you've got one tank that's got a global win rate of 44% and another one that's got 58? Probably. Yeah, that's in a game where everything lives around the 50% mark. That might be something you might want to look at. Just saying. All right. If you look at it and say, I can't nerf premiums or rewards because people played and paid money and earned them, etc. How can you also say, good job earning or paying for a piece of garbage tank that we're not going to make better? That there's no logic there. There is logic there if you're trying to make money, because they need garbage tanks to get beat up by good tanks. That's kind of like they need bad players to be beat up by good players, but that's a random queue thing. And I actually don't necessarily have an issue with the random matches, with the pub matches, because that's the idea of it. You get all skill levels in there. We'll come back to the player skill in just a minute. So power creep with the tanks and the refusal to buff or debuff tanks as required, primarily the premiums and the reward tanks. All right. Broken or overpowered problematic game mechanics that come in two flavors really for me. The number one is the massive alpha tanks that can delete tier 10 tanks that can delete an entire tier 8 in one shot. This happens at lower tiers to some extent. There's a couple derp guns and tanks like that along the way sprinkled in there. But there are multiple at tier 10 with alpha that can delete entire tanks or very nearly delete them. They can absolutely cripple them with one shot. Tons of tanks that can two-shot, tier 10s that can two-shot tier 8 tanks. And then we get into the auto-loader, loader, reloader, loaders. All right, all the different versions of auto-loader, auto-reloader, reverse auto-reloader, double-barrel tanks, two-shot auto-loaders, that whole genre. Came out in the French line a long time ago, and that was their thing, right? The shtick of the French were the auto-loader. Well, Wargaming hit gold with that because people really liked to delete other tanks in several seconds, vice a long, plodding, interesting, tactical game. So they made more. And at this point, nearly, I was going to say that's not true, a significant amount. It feels like half. If we did the math, it might be half, but it's a lot of the new stuff is an autoloader, a double barrel, or an auto reloader, reverse forward, whatever. That everyone's got them. Everyone's getting them. Why? Because they sell. I find them problematic because it's a dumb game mechanic. There's nothing you can do about it if somebody decides to YOLO you. I mean, you can try to bounce it, you can try to angle, all the stuff you would do within the game mechanics. When I say nothing, it's obviously stuff you can do. You can be careful not to overextend, you can be careful not to get engaged by them. But yeah, I got it. All that stuff. Skill issue, right? Noted. However, if you're trying to play the game, you're in forward positions, you're doing the things that are interesting to me in the game, vice hiding behind everybody and using your team as a meat shield. We'll get to that in a minute. You can easily find yourself in a situation where someone just decides to pump every auto loading, loader, reloader, double barrel, super alpha into you, and now you're out of the battle because you had a cyclical and you got a shot and he got 4. Great. Or you're crippled and now you're at a one shot or whatever, and that person gets away, or he dies. Even if he dies, it doesn't matter because now your gameplay experience is screwed. Your experience is getting ganked by an auto loader, reloader, or slapped by some high alpha thing, which now gets me to some of the map situations where there are maps that are so imbalanced. A lot of times the imbalanced maps are because there are spots where you can't get to the medium or the heavy spot without getting slapped by one of these guns because scout can get forward and spot you at the crossing. There's some kind of constricted crossing or exposed crossing, and you're going to get slapped. That's not a good game experience. Losing half my hit points trying to get to the heavy brawl, or getting deleted by a YOLO autoloader, loader, reloader, or getting RNG'd slapped by an FV 4005 or one of the other massive alpha tanks is just not very fun. It's not a fun game experience. I find myself having that happen to me because I play aggressively. So now let's touch on that part, because that does kind of go to the randoms discussion I had, where I said I understand that and I'm not bothered that much by randoms getting all skill levels. I am as close to being interested in some kind of skill level matchmaker as I've ever been, and I've never been interested in it at all. But to some extent, it might be worth looking at, because it is very annoying to get romple stomped. You know, the maps set up such as they are, then you get a mismatch in skill, and it's 15-5, 15-3, 15-2, 15-1, something like that. Or you're on the team that romples. You see it happening. You notice the enemy deployment, and you notice how aggressive your players are playing and watching the way they're playing, and you know it's on. And as soon as the first 5 tanks are gone, then it just cascades, and that's it. And to some extent, that's built and baked into the game. But the problem is we now go back to the alpha thing and the autoloader, loader, reloader thing, and especially at higher tiers where we are maxing out the game mechanics, the game set, the game rule set, and it just goes faster. The game gets faster, it gets faster. They did a conscious effort to do this back in the past, and it has absolutely worked. The games definitely go faster. Now, I think if you look at the math, what they've found out is that they're not necessarily average-wise longer or shorter. But what I think is also happening is you have either very long games because of the campiness, or very short because of the romple, and very few kind of in between. And that's where your average comes from, in my opinion. Because what's the incentive for players? Let's go back to that now, players skill-wise, and how the maps and all these mechanics affect players. It's incentivizing players to do something, and either they're incentivized to play the overpowered tanks, which is why there's tanks that you see constantly you can't get away from. BZ-176, ELC 90s, you know what I'm saying right there. Those tanks that you see at whatever tier you're at, you're always going to see those tanks because people play the crap out of them. Just go look at the stats and look at the most played tanks, and you'll look at them and go, yep, I cannot swing a dead cat without having one of those freaking tanks in my game. I mean, gameplay wise, how annoying is it for the enemy team to have an ELC and you have 432? Maybe that's a bad example. Let's say whatever the German one is, the SPIC or the Hawk 12. You have a Hawk 12 and they have an ELC. You're on proc. That's annoying. Or they have 2 ELCs and you've got a Hawk 12 and a Blesk or something like that. Although, to be honest, the Blesk line is annoying too, with the stupid autocannon jumping out and absolutely just shredding things. Again, the super alpha idea right there. All of those things. So for me, all of those things we just discussed. I'll chuck Artie on top. That's always been a burr in my shoe from the very beginning. Is it about as good as it's ever been? Yeah, probably. And unfortunately for Artie players, it also means they're about as inconsequential as they've ever been overall, but in given games can be very important because they can reach across the map and kill a low hit point good player that nobody else can kill, simply because it's got a stupid game mechanic that allows them to bomb, essentially from off board. They might as well not even be on the board. Blah, 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 same whine and cry ass, Artie thing we talked about. But that's not, I would not say that was one of the things. For me right now, it's just the gameplay experience is very uneven. I can sit down and in 2 games walk away easily because I'll get autoloader ganked, I'll get bombed by Artie, I'll get both. Some giant alpha will hit me and I've lost twice, 15-2 in a row. And when I tell you that has happened to me often, it happens often. Now, generally, what you would say is, well, dude, you got to, that happens, all right? It's a streaky game. It's always been that way. Wait a little longer. But at this point, because of the amount that it happens, I am uninterested in pushing through that, or very much less interested in pushing through that than I used to be in the past. And I feel like it happens more. And that's dangerous. You know, the old feels, it feels like, where's your data? Where's your numbers? I've done some personal kind of watch stuff along the way. You know, that becomes a pain in the ass. And I don't know how many of you guys ever started doing that kind of crap in the game and then gave up because it's just well, number one, oftentimes it doesn't show you what you think you wanted it to show you, so you give up. So I will admit to that. Or you just can't be bothered with it anymore. So to a large extent, this is feelings, nothing more than feelings. The other one that I'm going to chuck on top of the flaming fire of gameplay right now in World of Tanks, also understand this is an NA server. I think some of this stuff is a little better on EU just because of the sample size and the number, not sample size necessarily, but the number of people. I feel like, and I've had guys tell me that the matchmaker thing, in terms of a bunch of overpowered tanks, because there's so many more players on EU, it just feels like it's a little more wide open, but I don't know, I haven't been on EU for a while. But what I was talking before I got sidetracked is the fires. And it could be just a streak, but I am not lying to you because this is a number I have kept track of. In the last about 2 weeks, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks, I think I've been lit on fire 20 times, 24 times. Let's see how many games I've had in the last 7 days here. So I was just looking at this. Again, I play a lot, so don't be shocked. 7 days, 108 battles. 108. There's no 14-day on this, so let's just double that. 220 battles. It's been, honestly, 20 to 24 fires. Now, I have been playing, say, the Arak 105 Proto, which is a thin tank. I have been playing the Mittler KPZ PR68, which is a thin tank. Not a lot of armor, so you are going to get a lot of pens, a lot more pens than other tanks. I do play aggressively. Some of these shots are in the side or in the back because I'm circling. Noted, those are going to be more dangerous because you've exposed critical infrastructure of your tank. I got it. But it's also tanks like the can opener, tanks like the KTTS, which is a big TD, the WZ120 GFT. I even got lit on fire in the Toro a couple times. So it's not just super thin tanks. It is also getting shot in the face. Well, in the case of the Toro, it's got the transmission or engine up front. Got it. There's mechanics reasons why, but I don't remember in such a short span being lit on fire as much. This could be completely temporary. It could be absolutely just something that's happened to me due to an unlucky streak. But let's go back to the perception with all the other things piled on top and looking at the game and going, it's not fun. Yesterday I sat down. I had about an hour to play. I played 2 games, lit on fire both games, shut the game down, and walked away. I said, that's enough for me. That's enough for me. Did I come back in the afternoon to play a few more? Sure. I got my missions done and then moved on. But in terms of that game session and the taste in the mouth of the gameplay for the game, done. And that happens to me more often than it doesn't at this point. So there you go, guys. Let me know what you think if you got this far in the video of the cry-assing going on here. People are going to have their own experience, but I know that we're all complaining about the Rompel Stomps. I know that we're all, you got to watch using the absolutes. A lot of us are complaining about the Rompel Stomps. A lot of us are complaining about overpowered tanks that don't get nerfed, about broken game mechanics that don't get fixed, about maps that don't get touched. Where are the new maps? Went through a whole thing. This is a whole nother subject. We went through that whole thing a couple years back. All these tests on maps. How many maps came out of those? 2? 3? We got the one with the airfield in the middle of it, big open spot, useless area. 1/3 of the map unusable. It drives me crazy. Big open map, but shitty. Which has actually been redone recently. Whatever that one's called, Pearl, no, not Pearl River. Yeah, I don't know what it is. We got that one out of it, and we got one other. We got, was Pilsen out of that one? Not Pilsen. One other map, don't remember. Anyway, I don't know how many maps there were. There was 9 each time, or 6, or whatever. They showed us a dozen or 2 dozen, 20, something like that maps. So we got 1 or 2 out of it. How is that possible? How is it possible? How is it possible that we have maps? If I go over here, where's the maps thing? I know I'm not showing this to you, but we have maps that have up to 10% difference in win rates in this game. How is that possible? Now I'm using Tomato.gg, which does not have all of Wargaming's stats, so who knows? And it is interesting that if you, I will show you this here real quick, that if you look at it on the EU, some of these differences actually smooth out a little bit. So maybe a low sample. Let's just look at the EU though and see what kind of differences we have on maps. Larger sample sizes, so theoretically a better sample size. Steeps. This drives me crazy. I don't know which one of these is north, south, or east, and you can't find out. That Tomato.gg changed the way they showed these, and the new system is shit, but that's just my opinion. What we can see though is one spawn has a 52% win rate, and one spawn has a 45% win rate. That's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable. You are absolutely screwed by randomly being put on a bad spawn, randomly being put on a bad team, and randomly being put in a team that has crap tanks. What are you supposed to do? Get good. Get good. All right? These are not they're not premonitions, but they are predictive. Okay? 53%. Tundra, 53 and 46. Well, I mean, come on. 49 and 50. This is what you're looking for. That's pretty good. 48 and 49, you betcha. These with the green, nah, that's terrible. What's going on here? We've got Redshire, 46 and 50. Terrible. What this means here is this is a campy one, and there's a lot of draws here. Where's the draw percentage? Is that the one there? There's no draw. That's interesting. They don't. It's probably in there somewhere, but usually what this kind of thing means is there's a significant amount of draws because we're missing some percentages, aren't we? 51 to 46. That's probably, sorry. 45 to 51. Come on. What else we got? Oyster Bay is the one I was talking about earlier. 52 to 46. Terrible. Overlord. 53 and 45. Mine's 52 and 45, dude. 45. Which spawn is that? I'm not sure. Come on, Wargaming. This is ridiculous. Live Oaks, 52 and 46. Corellia has got a few draws on it, as you might expect. 48 and 46. But at least it's fairly even. Here's another gross one. Fjords, 46 and 51. What is this? Airfield. Oh my gosh. Remember, they just redid Airfield, guys. Good job, Wargaming. You nailed it. 56 to 42. Wow. These are all randoms? Yeah, because I've got it sorted by random. And standard. Does it get worse for poor old Encounter? Oh yeah, we got some serious situations. Pilsen, 55 to 43. What? That's above 10. Math in Public, above 10. Anytime you see the blue, you got a problem. Pearl River, 44 to 54. That's not fun. There's no fun in that. There's no fun to be put on Lakeville on the wrong spawn and Encounter and have a global 45% win rate and then all the other random shit chucked on top. It's not a fun gaming experience. Ghost Town, 55 to 43. So that actually brings up another thing, since we're just sitting here randomly discussing and pissing and moaning, at least I am anyway, is the refusal, in my opinion anyway, the general refusal to work on maps, to try to fix them. When they do it, they take a really long time, and they always do these massive overhauls. It's never this iterative small change where they can kind of go, okay, where are some of the problem areas? Let's change these up just a little bit. Right now, it's these big reworks. They did that big rework on Airfield and they porked it away. It's terrible now. Absolutely horrible. I do not like Airfield in any way. There's nothing fun on Airfield anymore. It's awful. It's one of the most rumple-stomped maps I think I've seen, to be honest with you. And I guess it's the south spawn. Sometimes I get a little mixed up because you're always looking forward on your map, but maybe it's east. It's the east spawn, I think, that has the problem. Could be wrong. I'm trying to think of the one. What is the one with the crossing that still gets crushed, but is also just a miserable map? I know I'm. What am I saying? Explaining or describing a lot of maps, aren't I? A miserable map. But that's another thing chucked on top. We don't do maps. When we mess with maps, we do these massive overhauls, and in the case of Airfield, we completely screwed up. And what part of looking at the old Airfield where you go, we need to make this map better? What part of that concept was, let's just completely change it? They made it bigger. I'll give them that. And maybe that was the whole concept. Yeah, we're just going to make it bigger. Okay. It was actually not a bad map. Compared to what it is now, it was fantastic. It's a terrible light tank map. It still is. Good job. All right. Happy 4th of July. That's my thoughts. It actually sort of turned into just a rant, I guess. Whatever. So what? Let me know what you guys think, though. What are the things that are... what are the things that decrease your game experience with World of Tanks? What makes you want to walk away? What are the things that are your priorities? Let me see if I can sum the priorities up for me. Definitely the overpowered and broken tanks and game mechanics. I think that's a big one. The map situation is a big one for me. The giant alpha and autoloader situation, which is part and parcel really of the overpowered tanks situation, although most overpowered tanks do have that going on. I was about to say the XM57 as an example, but it does have a big alpha and a lot of armor, so that it does have the alpha situation going on. I mean, it's not massive, but it hits pretty hard. So the tank situation, I would say overall, the map situation is certainly a problem as well. I think those are probably the two big ones for me. Things about the gameplay, and then Matchmaker chucked on top a little bit. Really, though, the problem with the thing with Matchmaker is it is taking all those other problems in the game mechanics, and then it puts them all in a game, and then you blame Matchmaker for it, right? The skill level problem, the overpowered tank problem, the map problem. It takes all that and it puts it in a match, and then you go, well, Matchmaker sucks. Well, no, actually, Matchmaker only works with what's in the game. It's I did forget the wheeled tanks thing. Don't like that either, especially the French ones. Everyone's stomping on their desk going, you forgot the stupid wheeled tanks. I did, and they're stupid. All right, guys, that's all I've got. Have a good 4th of July. We'll probably see you when we get around to the other side of vacation. You guys have a fantastic summer. Until then, there are some videos coming up next week. Maybe what I'll do is I'll space them out so they'll be every couple days or so. That's probably a better idea than just have it completely stop. You guys have a great one. This is Guido. See ya.